Tell me how you been.
Well, the year, started off with my mom, with this cancer scare with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And with myself, to an extent. I had, like, this weird little growth on my gum that appeared out of nowhere. It was so weird and gross, and I thought maybe it was a canker sore, but anyway, long story short, I had to go to some oral surgeon, had to remove it. Everybody was like, they seemed kind of concerned, and this is kind of weird. They're like, have you had cancer? Anyway, they sent it off for biopsy, so that was just a little bit of like a weird, do I have oral cancer? It's interesting. But, and then my mom's cancer hit, her scare, and I don't know, I guess I handled it the best I could. I was super scared. It was just, when the news hit me, it was just like all my blood turned to ice. Like it just went to ice, and like my stomach I was just like, what? This isn't supposed to happen. It was just so from left field. So that ended up lasting like almost 6 weeks or 7 weeks or something. And so I was kind of all over the place. I was a lot of it, I was fucking terrified, like just in the high alert, just terrified. Like there was when I first, there was definitely a couple times where I just was walking in circle and like popping jelly beans in my mouth and like just, really like lost, like was really like out of my fucking mind. And then there was, just a lot, anyway, but then I would have some moments where I was just trying. I was trying to like be better. I don't know. I just sat there. I was like, okay, I'm running from these feelings. Like, let's sit down here. Let's do it. Let go. Set. Like, I was like, I'm supposed to face this. It's supposed to get better. And so I just sat there and like kind of faced it. I had a couple cool times where it did start to disappear, but I just would face my worst fear. She's gonna die. She's gonna be dead by the end of the year. Like, and I just kind of went through it in my mind, and it did calm. All of a sudden, a calm did come over me, and I was just like, well, I will face it with courage and grace, whatever comes.
Yeah, you don't have a choice about the outcome. You don't have a choice about the outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
And your text, some of those words help too. Like, this is how it's been since the beginning of life. Like, this is how life. This is what happens if people die, and
it's hard. It's hard. It is.
It's really hard.
And we're not wired to be okay with it. We're not wired to be like, oh, great, it's time for her to go. We're not.
Yeah, so I definitely tried to just be calm, give myself grace on that, and just be there for her and all that. It was just not fun. Like, I'm used to like having fun a lot. Like, it was just like for 2 months, I think I had half the fun like one day. Like, I was just every day. It was just like every day, like my life stopped. Like,
right. Well, it's hard to really focus on all the extra energies. Fun to me is like extra energy. When you're in fun comes after you feel safe. Fun comes after you feel like, those fundamental needs are fulfilled. Then you can have fun. When I was struggling with the gym and financially we were having such horrible hardship. I didn't want to go out and socialize. Yeah. I was under so much stress, even with my mother's sickness. I did not want to go out, and that wasn't appealing to me. What was more appealing was sitting on my front porch and maybe having a conversation with a friend. I just wasn't, those things actually do force you to rethink kind of what life's about and prioritize. And when you're under that type of stress, it takes energy to be an extrovert.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just constantly reaching out for, like, escape and you know, and then like your text is like, just avoiding it, you know, is only going to make the pain worse. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. It was just, you know, like this one job I work, it's like all the guys are just constantly like passing joints around, and I was just like kind of a little bit more stonier, and I would just kind of was in this little haze, and then I would just want to like listen to Taylor Swift, and like instead of listening to your tapes and like listening to you, I would be like, I'm kind of stoned, I can't listen to it.
Well, again, it's that makes sense to me because you're again, the energy to do personal work, the energy to hone in on personal work when you're focused on your mom. You know, focused on
like what's life gonna look like now? Like, oh, Jesse and Alex will probably move to St. Louis, but I'm gonna really have like no home base out here. Then, you know, it just kind of just like, wow, life can just any minute, like literally any minute, your phone can ring and your entire life is uprooted and completely like just blown to fucking bits.
Yeah, it gives you perspective, don't you agree?
Yeah,
it's like really good readjusting perspective. Like, what are real problems? And can you handle it? You know, real problems versus made up shit.
Yeah.
Based on fantasy. Right?
Yeah.
So they can be very important. They can be very important things, you know, to really get you centered. It's like it pushes you and it requires you find a center, you know. It's hard.
Which I'm trying to do. I don't know. I just, you know, and I just was observing, you know, like our last session, it was like, you know, you had said, you know, you have all this wisdom. It's like time to like implement that wisdom, like, you know, and if you would put half of this energy you put into all these other things, you know, just that part of our conversation, if you could just harness all this energy that I put into all these fantasies or all this other bullshit, if I could just put like a drop of that into something that actually could be helpful.
Right.
And, you know, so I, you know, a lot of these last couple months has just been, I have felt like there's that wise part of me that I've just been sitting and just observing, like this circus, this inner circus going on, and I've just been sitting here going, you know, what the fuck? Like, I felt like last year I was so much more calm and peaceful, and like, you know, I was kind of happy last year. Like, I felt I was more like in my recovery mode, and you know, then it's like my knee hit in like November, and I just kind of allowed that to, you know, but then I'm like, okay, well then I guess I wasn't that strong in my footing anyway. If just a little bit of a knee issue could just send me back into thinking I need to lose weight.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think it's your recovery process is evolved, and you have evolved rapidly. I wish you could go back, if you can, go through our text stream, go back through the sessions we had a couple years ago, and then tell me if you haven't evolved. So,
I know.
So just a thought.
Absolutely have. Absolutely
so, but here's the thing: you weren't, you know, we hone in on what you're aware of, right? Because you're bringing it up to me. Yeah. It's like sometimes we don't know an issue or where we're vulnerable until the vulnerability shows up, right? And then we have to address it again. So, you know, and with respect to your relationship with men, you probably are so evolved beyond where you were 2 years ago. In relation to your health, maybe not so much, right? That might be a little bit harder for you to resolve. And it has been since the beginning. I mean, I remember you sobbing and crying because you're like, I'm lagging around, you know, and I was just like, shut the fuck up. You remember those conversations?
Well, yeah,
And so here it is. Back then it was a cognitive distortion. Then it became a reality, right? So in November it became a reality.
I feel like there was this little, even all that time when I was kind of high on semi-recovery, there was always like this tiny little voice that would still be like, oh, you should lose weight, and I was able to dismiss it. And whereas now I feel like I've just been turned inside out, and it's just everything that's in there is just coming out.
Yeah. Well, and do you know how often I say sometimes you have to suffer some more?
Yeah.
It's like going back and it's like you just got back together with your ex-boyfriend. Imagine that. And it's the patterns have begun again. So sometimes you have to do that. It's like,
or just relearning the same things. Like, I'll be like, why is this a revelation when I totally knew this? You know, or just even like, you know, with the inner, like the taunting. Like, there's just this inner, you know, like I'll wake up and it'll be there. Like, oh, you should be, you know, oh, look, you know, what did you, yes, you're and I'll just be like, I cannot believe, like, this voice,
the inner bitch is still there. The inner abusive.
Like, you know, then I was comparing it to, okay, how is it actually walking? Like, you know, I'm walking up some stairs. I'm like, okay, this is the worst thing. Like, walking up these stairs, it's so hard.
Yeah.
You know, like,
for
me. Like, what is literally worse? This fucking bitch in my head, busting my balls 24/7 and, like, literally torturing me, or going up these stairs. Like, it's literally, the bitch is 1,000 times worse.
I know.
Like,
it's
like
poisonous.
These things, but I feel like I'm almost relearning them from the outside in like a deeper way. Like, really and then literally going, why would I want to be a part of your, like, cunt club?
Yeah,
like, why would I want to do what you're telling me to do when you're so fucking mean and nasty? Why would I want to try to be thin to please such a disgusting system? Like,
yeah, when it requires you live in insane. You know that
I was like,
I get it. Yeah, good for you. So this is real. So to me, this is like, okay, now this is yours. You're the one who's doing this. It's not me beating the living shit out of the ego. You know,
like,
it's you actually going, oh my God, I'm not doing that. So let me say something really quick, just to maybe give some clarity. That inner bitch, or that abusive system, because it isn't the language and the thoughts. That's a brainwashed system. It's not you. So you can give it a name if you want. Like, I don't know, just give it a name. So you have an identity with it. Roxanne. Or give it something that really kind of personifies that kind of immature junior high mentality, right? That is so ignorant, just super naive, and actually thinks it would be a good idea to starve someone because they're fat. You know, like, it's inhumane, really, totally inhumane. And there's an entire system out there that supports it. And, you know, not because of the yes, there is this degrading, sexist, you're a worthless pile of shit system that actually has that attitude, but it really stems from the glamour and the glory that's given to thinner people, as if they are truly better people. That might still exist in your head. So that persona still exists, because that persona comes from, it comes from the narcissist, which is in the system.
Yeah.
So there is that inner narcissism. Okay, I differentiate this in my book. This is the chapter I've been working on for over a year. This conversation, for over a month.
Wow.
So I'm having it with you before you read the book, but I describe the difference between our inner narcissism, which is actually very healthy, and it's part of our development as a human being. It is the inner desire to be loved through specialness. You know how kids are like, Mom, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's the desire to feel that you are special to the people that you want love from your loved ones. You want to feel that they are, like, proud of you. That's narcissism. That has such positive, that's the pride part of the scale of consciousness. It's that kind of, like, inflated sense of self. It is very, the desire level. It is very energized. Last session when we were talking about the amount of output you have put out there, that has come from narcissism. Very powerful, very productive. The benefit is it gives you a real sense of your competence and what you're capable of. So there is a sense of esteem that comes from that. But there's major downside, because if you live in a culture that says in order to be special, you need to be superior, if you can't differentiate from your true authentic sense of self, if you can't differentiate the true self and the glorified narcissistic concept, you're likely to chase the concept. and not stick with yourself. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
So it becomes narcissistic when your specialness comes from being the best, better than others, superior, versus just feeling special because you have a talent. Or like I would say, my recovery came from accepting that I don't ever want to be special. I don't ever want a resume that requires I go outside of my humaneness. I don't want specialness if it requires that I have to be a slave, that I have to change who I really am for someone else to give me that specialness. I'd rather just believe I'm special, just inherently being alive. That's pretty fucking special to me. So I've taken that specialness from feedback. I give it to myself. And I don't want to be superior. So there's no superiority attached to it. That's where the narcissistic tendencies just go away. So what you're hearing in your mind is the narcissistic belief system that you have to be superior.
Mm-hmm.
Again, our narcissism is what energizes that motive. So the goal here is to surrender the supremacy. That is where it changes big time. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it does. No, and along with all of that too is, I've been noticing, there's the whole tapes of, I find myself when I'm alone, like I start going over tapes in my head of like people that have wronged me.
Oh.
Things that,
Yeah, so that's blaming them. So you feel like a failure.
I just sit back and I just watch it. I'm just like, what?
Yes, hold on. So that is what happens when you believe in that narcissistic supremacy and you are failing. So you live in shame, and one escape mechanism is to blame and victimize yourself, because it's not me. I am special. I am superior, but they've taken it from me. Yeah, you're trying to negotiate.
Look what they did.
Yeah.
I'm just going over it, and I'm just like, I want to get out of here.
Yes, it should feel very juvenile, very childish.
Yeah.
And I'm not judging you, but it is it's like it's like the kid on the trampoline saying, Mom, watch this, watch me, while you're trying to talk to a friend. Right?
Yeah.
It's like constantly needing attention, constantly driving. Anyways, so it's like, how do you get rid of it? Well, first of all, narcissism becomes narcissistic when it is attached to supremacy, better than others. The consequence is that there's no grace and no lenience for the truth. Okay? So it's full of lies. You're constantly trying to inflate yourself to seem to be better and bigger than you actually are. You commit to things that is no guarantee. It's an inflated idea of what you think you can handle. Clearly, it requires perfectionism, not just from you, but the team around you, which makes it inflated.
I have no grace for myself and no grace for anyone else.
That comes
to that frame of mind.
from the concept. That is not coming from you as a graceless person.
Yeah.
That's how all people are when they want the supremacy attached to a fantasy. It requires perfectionism. Because if you are flawed, then you're not superior. So it feels threatening to your survival. So here is the solution. What the truth, telling the truth and accepting the truth does is it exposes you as flawed. To a narcissist, that feels catastrophic, because you're not superior anymore. It would require you surrender the supremacy. That makes it narcissistic, right?
Oh.
So when you create a space, just think of a child that makes a mistake. You give them a space that allows for grace. You legitimately failing, fucking things up. You give them the space to be able to tell the truth. What happens is you develop humility. Humility is very important in recovery. Because it gives you this, it's the willingness to admit the truth requires humility. Without blame. The humility to admit truth without blame, without stories, without defense. So it's like those visuals that I suggest, where you're in a white room, buck-ass naked, and you invite everybody you know, plus future people, to see all of your flaws. The willingness to just come out of the closet as an inferior human being. Again, inferior meaning not special to the narcissist.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you don't... Go ahead.
The perfect segue to tell you the other kind of personal bombshell that, as far as facing the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another piece of my puzzle of my life. So years ago, like, I guess I was like 23, and my sister was in this rehab. She was in and out of rehab all the time. And, she was at this place called the Meadows in Arizona. And this was, I don't know, maybe this was like, I think what fucking year it was. It was probably in the
early 90s, yeah.
Or the late 80s even. So this was, and, my mom and sister and I went out to, like, drove to Arizona to, like, support her. It was, like, family week or whatever. And so we drive out there, and, it's my sister. This is my oldest sister. She's fucking crazy. Like, God bless her, whatever. Anyway, she was at this rehab coming off of, like, coke and alcohol and all this shit. We were out there trying to support her, and we get out there, and I can't even remember when the specifics, but anyway, the bottom of the points was that it came out there that she thought my dad molested her. And it was, like, really over the top dramatic, all this crazy shit that she was saying he did to her. Like, hit her with the fucking 2x4 and made her suck his dick. Like, all this crazy shit that was, like, I don't know, it was so out of left field. And I think, and this was also when all that, there was a lot of, like, during that time where there was a lot of, like, false accusations or false memories. Like, there was kind of, like, that's when people were talking about it anyway, that everybody was molested back then.
Yes, and a lot of that is because sometimes therapists, if they can't pinpoint a source, they might think it's a repressed traumatic event.
Yeah.
And they might suggest
my
that.
So over the top crazy that they, Anyway, this was obviously, highly distressing to my mom, highly distressing to me and my sister. My parents had just, going through this horrible divorce, and it was really ugly. My dad was running around with all these women, all this other shit, and it was like something, when I heard that, it was something in me that resonated with me, like and I think as I look back, whatever, anyway, I'm not going to fucking explain every twist and turn, but I'm just going to tell you the points was that all of a sudden I, was there for this week, and it was like, all of a sudden, I thought maybe he had molested me too. And, I was like having, like, we used to lay on the couch and watch TV together, and I would, like, kind of, maybe. Anyway, so all of a sudden, that was it. Like, my dad had molested her. Maybe he'd molested me. I was, like, stayed and, like, took this family week. And then, in this group setting, they just, all of a sudden, they, like, pulled it out of me that I've been molested by him. And to me, it made sense. Like, I don't know. Anyway, so then I came home. I was really depressed for, like, a year. Then I ended up doing this other therapy thing that was, cool in a lot of ways. And it helped me in a lot of ways. It was called The Process. It was, like, this mixture of, like, psychology and spirituality. And this guy. Anyway, so then, I was there to kind of deal with that. Like, I was like, did I or didn't I? Like, I felt like I might have, but then I wasn't sure. And, then he kind of, like, took me through this visualization. And, then I felt that I had been. And so, long story short, you know, I ended up writing my dad this letter and, like, confronting him on all the shit. And, you know, there was some smoke to the fire, which was that, you know, he had a lot of sexual energy. And, you know, when I hit puberty, I think it was kind of hard for him. And, you know, like, caught me with my boyfriend a few times and never said anything. And I felt really weird. And, you know, my friends, he was kind of considered the perv dad. He was a little touchy with my friends. So there was, like, something to go on. But I feel like, anyway, I ended up writing him this letter that the therapist guy I was working with actually approved and let me give to my dad. And my dad, I gave it to my dad, and it was horrible. He was devastated. And so for like 2 years we didn't talk. And, you know, it's just like this. Anyway, then over time, you know, he was trying to reach out to me, and as I look back on it, I was like, I don't know, I was caught up in the drama of it, I was caught up in the grandiose of it. He and I eventually reconciled, and I kind of been sitting, and my oldest sister, of course, all of a sudden, she's like, oh, none of that happened, I was just crazy, and I'm like, thanks, bitch, for tracking me into your little fucking bandwagon. Now I'm, you know, so then I was sort of like, started to feel in my heart that he hadn't done it. Anyway, all of this to tell you that it's just been something that has caused a lot of trouble. Like when my dad, you know, went on this huge drinking binge for 2 years, and my brother hates me for it because he watched him do it, and he would like have a rifle and, you know, that he was going to kill himself, and how could, you know, I accuse him of this, and I was just like, anyway, I've been cleaning out so then my dad passed, so then my dad and I reconciled, he just fucking forgave me, we just, like, moved forward with it, and we'd had a little bit of a conversation. I did sort of apologize to him half-assed, and kind of almost take it back, but not quite, and so recently, during the, you know, the start of this year, I've been going through a bunch of boxes, and I came upon this box with my dad's stuff, and I kind of glanced at it when he died, and it was like, I couldn't deal with it. Like, I just knew what was in there. Like, it was this folder on me it was his personal things. And he had a folder that had my name on it. And in this folder was, like, he had the letter, and he just, like, all this tortured writing, all of that, like, going over each of my points, and, like, all these newspaper articles about false accusations, and, you know, just, like, daughter, like, how do you, it just, him pleading and, like, trying to explain himself, and then, like, I reread the letter that I wrote him, which I just dreaded and didn't want to read it. I read it, and it was so fucking bitchy and just disgusting and rude and mean, and he was so tortured by it. Like, I guess, it hit me so fucking hard that I, like...
When was this? When did you see this?
I saw this like a month ago.
Okay.
And basically what it did was it just knocked me on my ass, and I just had to face the truth and realize that I fucking hurt my dad so fucking bad on like a whim because some fucking assholes told me that, you know, I just jumped on this drama train in my early 20s of like being bored and depressed and nothing better to do with my life. So I completely fucked my dad over to the gnarliest extent, and as I read this, you know, as I read through this box, like, it hit me with 100% certainty that he did not do anything to me. Like, I just knew the way he was writing and his pleading and his pain and the time he was taking to try to explain it to me and defend himself and explain things, and I was just like, oh, I don't want, you're just, you know, this is, of course you're saying this now. Like, I was such a fucking bitch. Like, I was shocked at what a little fucking bitch I was to my father, who, yeah, he, you know, was a dick to my mom and a piece of shit here and there, but he did not deserve this for his little daughter to fuck him over like this. And my brother would, like, you know, you said, you know, you don't even know what dad went through. I would watch him black out drink with a rifle. He was going to kill himself. He completely, you know, yours. And I'd be like, oh, well, it's his, if he chose to deal with it like that. Like, I was just no mercy. And so for the past month, I've just been sitting here going, I had just judged everyone my whole fucking life. Oh, You don't know what loyalty is. I'll show you what loyalty is. Oh, you what? You did this, you did that, you did this, you did that. And I'm just sitting here going, wow. Meanwhile, I falsely accused my dad of molestation and a bunch of horrible shit. Other people in the family heard about it. He was fucking humiliated. I basically wouldn't even listen to him to give him a chance to defend himself. And, then what does he do? He fucking forgives me, takes me back, loves me, gives me money, helps me out every month, leaves me sweet messages about how he believes in me, all this shit, that I also was listening to. And then what do? I still march around like, my dad did, Robin, he didn't tell me, how to be a daughter. He did, bitching about my dad, what a piece of shit he is. When meanwhile, I'm the one that completely fucked him over, and he's the one that graciously fucking forgave me. And so it's just, anyway, that has just been like, my brain has worked. I've just walked around going, like, literally, who am I? Literally, I'm a piece of shit like everyone else. Like, and I literally thought I was better than everyone else all this time. Like, I had all the answers. I'm fucking the go-to guru on how to be a good person and a daughter. Yeah. That's my fucking deal.
You know what? It's time to forgive yourself.
I guess.
Well, well, let me start with this. That's terrible. That was terrible.
I just,
okay.
Not to mention, this whole, like, I had this connection with this guy I worked with that's married. It's like, and that finally, it's come to is over now, thank God. Like, that fantasy is popped.
Yes, right.
But it's like, I've also been sitting here going, if you would have asked you out to go for a connect, you would have absolutely just hooked up with a married man. Again, that's what a piece of shit is. Any woman that would go near another man's husband. And I'm like you have no fucking value. You'll do anything that makes you feel good or anything that helps you feel better with your fucking misery. Like, you don't care about anyone. Like, you're just a maniac like everyone else. And that's also kind of a relief. Like, I'm not.
Yes, because you're admitting your faults.
Where I'll be like,
yeah.
I mean, I've been like sick to my stomach over this. Like,
yes.
literally almost thrown
understandable.
up. Like, I almost vomited,
very understandable. This is traumatic. I'm assuming you have symptoms of trauma.
So feeling like I want to unzip my skin and step out. Like, I can't even live with myself. Like, I'm so disgusted with myself. And then I'll just go, okay. Well, then what narcissistic standards are you setting for yourself that you hate yourself this much?
Pretty
much.
Why
aren't you allowed to be a piece of shit like everyone
else?
You're a person just trying to do your fucking best. You're a lost kid in her 20s.
Yeah, you had no idea. You were definitely suffering as a narcissist for a long time.
Just all narcissistic.
Yes, but keep in mind. Do you want me to? Do you want me to talk?
But I'm also feels good. Like, I think, like, wow, this box has been here for 10 years, and I've never been able to look in it because I knew what was in it. It's like I already knew this. For 10 years, I knew this. Since he died, I knew this.
So how much have you been repressing this guilt?
That folder, and I could not bear to look at it.
How much? Like, how long have you?
Look at this, because now you can handle this and face the truth about what you did. And maybe I can do something about it. Maybe I can go call his, talk to a couple of people in the family, just go look and clear his name. You should. That would feel good. Or call my brother and apologize.
Have you thought to write a letter to?
Handle it weird and just go, Tim, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry you had to live with Dad. I'm sorry I did that.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
You need to write a letter to your dad.
To my dad?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely talked to him a lot. I just sat here and it's just like, I'm so sorry, Dad. I can't even fucking believe. Yeah, but you need to do it in humility. Yeah. And compassion, because he needs to. If he were here, if you could actually have the space, the white, gracious space, to just tell the truth. Yeah. You wouldn't be like. You would absolutely feel the torture he went through. You would feel that. Well, that's what I have felt, which is good, but that I couldn't even that I can't even live with, that I've just been like, I literally cannot handle this pain. Like, I have felt the pain it caused him, and
let me finish. Let me finish. I get it. I love that you're letting this out right now, but do you want my help or do you want me to listen? Yes. I can do that. I can just listen.
No, I'm done now.
I just want to give you some instruction. I think this will be good for you, and I could be wrong, but you need to create that space for you, because you're not going to create it if you continue to avoid that pain. Acknowledge it. You're there. You're facing the pain, but your way of dealing with it is with self-hatred.
Yeah.
That self-hatred isn't actually doing anything. It's just, it's like coming from the narcissist, right? So what if we remove the narcissist? That's going to be great. If you remove the narcissist, the narcissistic supremacy, what would that allow you to do in a conversation with him?
I don't know, just humbly apologize.
Yes, and explain. I had no clue. I had no way to comprehend how this could damage a father. You have no comprehension of it. And you had guidance that didn't give you any discernment around that. That counselor was horrible. Terrible.
I know, I want to call him up. I literally
don't, because you're blaming. Don't. That's not going to do anything. Because
encouraged me to give this to my father.
Just listen to me. Just listen for once. That's not going to help you.
Okay.
Because ultimately, you need to. They believed he molested you. This is the one downside to therapists and coaches that don't question the person that they're talking to. The first thing I do is question the story of the victim that's talking to me. Okay? I'm not dismissing them. I just don't believe them. Because what I'm hearing is a child's perspective of what happened. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. But because I've had clients who've been molested, who were raised in horrific environments, but when they present it, it's poor me, they ruined my life. I don't believe that, right? So in your case, you need to what is the route to feeling better? Feeling that you are more connected with your father, more connected with yourself, that you have evolved, that you served the karma, because you have served it. You are still serving it. And right now you can either end it by acknowledging it, and it's like sign the fucking contract. You need to have this conversation with your father, with yourself, with your father, so that you can say, I served the karma. That contract with him has been served. And it is complete. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does a lot. Yeah, I love that.
That's the only way for you to move. But if you keep on blaming shit, being angry, you have to take ownership for it all. Recognize that these therapists weren't really equipped to handle this. They gave you guidance they thought was the right thing to do. They thought it would help you. They didn't question you, and they did. It's not like they knew, we're gonna freaking torture this man forever. You didn't know that. They thought he was probably someone who did molest you and deserved to feel like shit.
Yeah.
Not questioning that it's probably not true, If you could tell him the truth and acknowledge, and I guarantee you, he isn't. He has given you context around it. She's confused. Of course it was. I mean, if you go into his pain and suffering, can you imagine? I mean, it's kind of hard. You don't have kids, so you don't know that maternal, paternal kind of flame that burns till the day your child dies or you die. It never turns off. I mean, my children they're the only things in my life that could cause harm to my psyche.
Yeah.
Right? Literally, I'm fine with myself. I'm okay with my personal death. I'm okay with my own inferiority, and I can handle change and suffering. I figured that out. But have me as a mother witness all that shit, it's a whole nother level of survival mode. Right? And I think it's really important that you give him compassion or show him compassion through a letter, through some type of communication where you, even if it's just talking, like you have, like full on, knees on the floor, heart, chest opened up, grace for yourself, acknowledging that pain and suffering and forgiveness that you're going to have to give yourself because you didn't know. You had no clue. You now have an adult's perspective. Mm-hmm. You didn't in your 20s at all. You were very narcissistic. Narcissistic people think they're superior. They think that they know everything. And here we are 30 years later, and now you can see, oh my God, you couldn't see that as a child. You couldn't see past your own narcissism, you know? So acknowledge you've lived with a borderline personality issue for decades, and you are resolving it. Mm-hmm. You're going to love listening to this. I'm not going to lie. It's as good for you, but I'm so glad you talked about this.
I know.
Repressing the shame and the guilt of that, no wonder you're trying to feel better.
It was just like this shadow that I just could not bear to look at because I could bear to feel the pain that I had caused him.
Okay, you need to feel the pain.
Yeah, I have been, and it is so horrific.
You need to feel the pain and how he came to forgiving you. Because he clearly came to a place where he forgave you.
Like we saw each other at my grandpa's funeral or something, and we hadn't seen each other in 2 years, and he just came to me like crying, and we just threw our arms around each other crying, and he just forgave me. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, well, he forgave you before that, just so that you know. Probably
and
because he needed to stop drinking. He probably needed to recover himself, right?
Which he never did. He eventually died of alcoholism, but
yeah.
And but whatever. He didn't deserve that.
Mm-mm. He didn't.
And it's just.
But for some reason, it was something he needed. I like to think of it as a contract. You have these, this played a role in his life, and it played a role in your life. And have you learned what you needed to learn from it?
I don't know. I think I'm getting there.
I think so too. I think when this is resolved, a lot of things are going to change. Because the supremacy and all that shit that was probably how you coped, where you were, how you came to that, like, you don't know, that persona that you read in the letter.
Yeah. Just so high and mighty.
The antidote is humility. And you're going to need to give yourself a space with grace to actually express the humility, to say, I am now aware of the pain and suffering that I didn't. If you were aware of what this was going to do to your father, would you have done it?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, not with this kind of wisdom.
No.
What the hell did I think he was going to feel?
But you didn't have a clue. So again, at this point,
it was just a drama. I was just playing a little role in a little drama play. Poor me, I'm jumping on the bandwagon. Oh, no wonder I have weight issues, because I probably tried to push men away because I was molested.
Okay, stop with that. You get it. I get it. I don't want to waste your time. You know that role. You know that persona. We'll call her Roxanne. I don't know. No offense to anybody if if we put this publicly to any Roxanne out there.
Well,
I actually love that name, but
I'm also, you know, it also is like there is relief in knowing that I'm not better than anyone. Well,
yes.
There's a strange relief in it. Like I've almost just been relieved. Like,
I love that it's strange to you. It should, because there's that narcissist basically thing. It's really strange. It feels like love. I don't never felt this before. Like humility. It's like compassion. I don't know. It's strange.
Like I can just be myself, or I don't have to be like
better than.
Just seeing all the years I spent on this, like, and again, I knew this from our work in the last year. I knew that these things about myself, but it was like, it was just like a bomb went off. And I just feel glad. Like now it's like from the ends, everything just is vomited out into my apartment. All these gross dark parts of myself, like they're here now. Like I'm looking at them, I'm living with them, I'm really feeling them and seeing them like in a whole new level ever before.
Yay!
That part is good.
Yeah, well, this is real permanent shit. So face it as quickly as you can and wholeheartedly. The faster you do it, or the sooner you do it, not faster, the sooner you do it, like just facing this stuff with your father, the weight comes off of you. You do not have to continue this persona. It has brought you pain and suffering. It has caused others incredible amounts of pain and suffering.
Yeah.
So you can kill her. To me, that's like commit suicide, not to you, but to that, juvenile, energy sucking, the persona that wants the spotlight all the time. Spotlight. And to me, when you're telling this story, I'm like, oh, she just wanted the spotlight. It's the same spotlight you've been chasing. Yeah.
Exactly.
It was spotlight. Oh, well, now I'm in the spotlight. So without any regard to who it hurts, to include yourself.
Right.
Do you ever want the spotlight again? Do you really want that spotlight? Because it requires that you degrade everybody around you. Think of that.
Yeah. I mean, I just have also just been like so aware of like I just ethically have failed at like literally everything. Like I'm just
karma's a bitch.
Like a total
failure. Karma's a bitch.
Fucked this life up.
Correct.
So beautifully. Like,
that's okay. But let's reframe that. I get that, and I'm sitting here going, karma's a bitch. Narcissists tend to have the worst lives ever. You can have all this. And they all deserve it, because there is a lesson for you to learn. Like inauthenticity, supremacy, being better than other people, always like scratching and clawing people's eyes out for the spotlight in any form, right? You could say that was just one form of many to get the spotlight. Maybe the most destructive to someone you love and care about, where you had no concept of consequences. Nor does it, what narcissist does, and if they do, they don't care because they need the spotlight. So they'll blame you and say you deserved how I treated you. And it all feeds into the narcissistic concept, because the more shame and guilt you have about it, the more you have to prop yourself up, the bigger the spotlight you need, just to try to cope. So again, it's like the energy you've put towards the spotlight. What you've been willing to do for the spotlight. Think of that for a second. What you've been willing to do.
God.
You need to open it up. Okay, we're at about 48 minutes. Write this down. What have I been willing to do for the biggest and most grandest spotlight? And how has it hurt my life? Would you want the spotlight if given another chance? Right? Wouldn't you want to just remain kind of in the background, free to do and be and have integrity? And just let your life evolve naturally from the inside? The beauty of this lesson is love will come out of this. True love. For life, for what it is, and it's unconditional. Up until this point, you've never actually probably experienced it. Except for maybe with a pet.
Yeah.
Because pets are unconditional and you don't have to be a narcissist with pet. Anyways. This has been really good for you. I'm happy for you. I'm excited. This is good news. This is all good news.
Thank you. I felt like it was good news. Just that I thought it was interesting, you know, that I've had this box. Like, that I just went, I knew what was, like, I knew all this. Like, I knew that was in there, and I could never even...
Okay, so tell me this. When did you make the connection between moving on in your life and recovering and this box of dark secrets and hell? Like the need to open the box, the need to face these damages.
It was sort of like, you know, I'm literally just getting rid of so many of my things and possessions and books, and like just wanting this apartment to almost be bare bones and start over. I'm trying to, like, you know, and here's this box. I just, you know, I opened it and I saw like his sweater and his shoes and and I just, my stomach dropped, and I was like,
God, have you even resolved his death? When did he die?
It's been about over 10 years ago.
Oh my God, honey. I don't know if you've really resolved his death. That's another thing that's probably come up, is the fact that you have never truly grieved, because if you did, you would have had to felt the pain.
Of what? Yeah, the pain that I caused.
Yes. You need to face that. You have got to put yourself in it and feel it, and feel it wholly without being mean to yourself. Allow yourself to feel it, and as well, the grace and the forgiveness that he gave you.
Yeah.
Don't forget that part.
I think, yeah.
How,
forgiveness.
Yeah, he saw how stupid you were. He saw.
I don't know what was
Well, he saw the special needs. That's what I meant by that. At some point, he thought, she's crazy. She's lost her fucking mind. She is.
Or he just went, I love her, and whatever.
But I love her. I'm here for her. She will have to face this. He probably knew that. At some point, this is her problem. She's going to have to face that shame and guilt. At some point, she knows she's going to have to face the truth. He knew this time was going to come. Oh my God, that's for sure. He knew it.
Well, whether it was conscious or unconscious.
No, he knew it. No, I swear to God, he knew it. And that's how he got to grace for you. He felt sorry for you. Oh my God, that's clear as day to me. I'm having a psychic moment.
Well, I think I just knew, I just want to work, I don't know, I just dug into the box. I was just like, I had a day set aside. I just said, it's just fucking fine, let's just do this already. And I just like...
Okay, I'm going to just tell you what I'm getting right now. Are you ready?
Yeah.
He knew at some point the pain you were going to feel because of this, and he felt sorry for you. He did not want you to feel that pain. As a parent, he did not want you to feel that pain. Because he knew you were going to face it at some point, and it would be horrific. He did not want you to feel bad about it. And that's how he forgave you. I'm positive. I would put money on this. That's what happened.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's true.
So you need to forgive yourself.
I will. I'm going to get there.
How are you going to do it?
I think I'm going to just get sick and tired of being miserable,
No, that doesn't work. I'm going to tell you. You need to actually intentionally go into that space of pain. Intentionally. And it needs to be a space. So make an appointment to sit in this room, to lay on the floor, and Focus in on the feelings. Focus in on the pain it might have felt to him, and allow
I've done that. I've
Okay,
like writhed in dark
good.
agony where I had
So
to,
let
like,
me
stop where I
finish.
wanted to kill myself.
I get it. Let me finish. You're going to invite that in
Okay.
and feel it. And you're going to, because you have to have that feeling to forgive it. You can't repress it and forgive it.
Yeah.
You have to experience the feeling and give it a voice. I was wanting the spotlight. I didn't know that this existed. You didn't know this type of pain existed until now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now you do. And if you knew, you would never, ever do it again. Ever.
Never. I would never.
Yes. And that's where you're at today. So you evolved because of this.
Yeah.
And you will never, ever again in this lifetime, in the next lifetime, do it again.
No, I won't.
Nothing, no spotlight is good enough. Wouldn't you rather not have the spotlight? If it requires you hurt everybody around you.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I'd rather not have it for just the pain it causes me.
Well, of course.
You know? Yeah.
Of course. Right? Because that's ultimately
still,
in the end, nobody should have to suffer that much. Because what that spotlight represents is that you'll be loved and accepted. So, but that was your way of thinking about it.
Yeah, and that's still like what's behind, you know, I've not accepted my body as it is permanently. It's still like, but I want to think I'm cool. I want to think I'm sexy and that I'm in control and that I look good. Like what else? Oh my God. Like,
so listen to me.
Whatever.
I get it. So here's
the... go through my body.
Yeah, so if you've really evolved and forgiven and made amends, what you're surrendering is that specialness.
Yeah.
You're surrendering the grandiose, hail Chrissy persona. So how would you relate? So you kind of have to surrender that persona and think, if I got a new life, what would I do with it? How would I do it different? And you start right now. How would you relate to your body? I mean, if you don't have to be the glamour fantasy that you tried this last lifetime, how would you relate to the body?
So yeah, differently. I wouldn't be using it to fucking identify myself
at all. So you need to update your heart. You need to update your software now. It's time for an update. You need to update, turn the phone off, turn it back on, and now it's same phone, right? Different approach, different thought process. So that's what I meant by you need to go into an intentional space to feel the pain of how this has not worked for you. That everything you have suffered and caused suffering in others is because you want the spotlight. And whatever that symbolizes. And so what you do is say, I would never do that again. I have learned my lesson. I had my trial and error, and it was a massive error. And I don't want it anymore. I don't want the spotlight. So you reject it in all forms.
Yeah. It feels so good, too.
You can feel that already?
Yeah. I started feeling it last night. I was like, yeah. I was just feeling that feeling of, because
you will have forgiveness because you have done nothing wrong. So it's really like all the burden you've been carrying, all the dark baggage in your mind, it goes away because it was all part of that weird persona, that narcissistic persona you attached yourself to. And you're not going to do it anymore. So what happens to all the shame and guilt and darkness and the self-loathing?
It can dissipate.
It just... Think of it. Think of this again. You're right, it dissipates, but it's like, it dies. It dies. You don't give it any oxygen.
Yeah.
It's just you stop giving it oxygen because you don't want it anymore. All the threats that little bitch says, you just say, okay, that's easier. I'd rather that. I'd rather be so fat I can't walk. And if that's what I need to do to earn the grace and forgiveness, I'd rather.
Yeah, just like being alone, you know, that third hierarchy. It's like,
Wouldn't you rather be alone than to have to fulfill it with such a toxic, destructive?
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's just, I think part of me just got worn down and fatigued with like having this frame of mind that's so different from everybody around me. And it was like, I just want to be like them again, be in that current again for a minute, like everybody else. And then it was like all of a sudden I tapped into the current. I was like, okay, again, which is worse? This current of being in the club with everybody who hates themselves and body shit.
Right. Fake, pretentious.
And just being like, I don't even want you to think I have a great body. I don't even want that.
Even if you had a great body, you wouldn't put it on your resume.
Yeah. It's just like, you know, and it's like I'm lonely either fucking way. I mean, you know.
At least with one, you're free. At least with one, you're free.
Yeah.
And you can fulfill your life from a heart-centered focus. You no longer have the shame, the guilt. I mean, it's not the same.
And like, food, like, it's just so stupid. Like, yeah, so it's been a lot. It's just been a lot of shit, intense shit. But I'm trying to, you know, not panic and to just go, okay, this is turning out to be more of a journey than a destination.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so happy that I'm doing it. Like, you know, I'm just kind of trying to just, like, this is intense shit that, you know, a lot of people don't look. Like, I would just go through my whole life and not look. I would just blindly be this narcissist plowing over people left and right. Like, you know, at least anyway, I'm trying, the thing with my dad, it's like, wow, that was a long time coming, and it hurts so bad, and it's just, you know, I'll just burst into tears, like, so, you know, I've just been, like, agonizing over it for basically a month, just constantly. I think about it, and I just can't even think. It's been intense, but I know that it's positive. Yeah, I know that it's positive, that obviously I'm at a place where I can deal with this now, where I could not deal with it all this time.
Mm-hmm. That's huge. You know what? The other thing you need to give yourself really recognition for is that you really never intended to harm anybody.
Yeah, I try to think that too.
No, it's true. You might have justified hurting someone because you thought they might have deserved it or whatever, but if you knew the hurt, the choices would have been different. You were just so unaware, but your heart was never directed maliciously on it with intention and awareness. You never had that awareness or that intention. It may have from the outside been that so messed up and hurtful and self-centered, and we can sit there and judge it all you want from the outside for what it is, but there's a heart in there, and there's a context, and there's confusion, and there's a child, and there's this narcissism gone awry, and it's not as easy to see from the inside when you're in it. So you do need to recognize that you are a good person. You are. You don't mean harm. You truly don't. You never have. You've always had good intentions. You just were so misguided and attached to some type of like ideology that is disgusting. It's the ideology that is disgusting, not you.
Yeah, I keep hearing like, you know, you say, is it forgivable though? Is that forgivable? Like, and just looking around at everybody that I'm, you know, bitching in my head, like these negative bitching about it, and I'll just be like we're all everything is forgivable. Like we all deserve to be forgiven.
Yes,
like,
we do.
And forgive her and forgive her and forgive, like, it's sort of reset my center, you know, where it's like I'm so high and mighty, like where I thought.
Well, that's like that religiosity you were raised in, right?
Yeah.
And then what I did, because I was kind of raised in that high and mighty superior religion mentality, because I didn't know anything different, that's what I was taught, is I transferred it to body image.
Yeah.
As on the passive side, like I have to be perfect at something to be worth anything. Anyways, you just don't know there's something other than radicalism.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like an equation your brain is stuck in, and it's like you'll become radical at anything if you don't change the equation. And the equation can only be resolved with grace and humility.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I feel like the equation of like who I thought I was is just totally changing. And
right, and you brought it to recovery, radicalism.
That's interesting. Like I wanted it to be so perfect too.
Right.
Yeah, like I was gonna be like Robin's best pupil.
Oh my God! Like I have a best pupil.
Like it was just, I was definitely, well, I was obviously high on it because it was so amazing and felt so good, but it's like,
and then that narcissist goes around it and makes it something toxic. It's not the recovery that's toxic. It's the narcissist that takes it and distorts it into I'm better than you. That's spiritual narcissism.
Or just that high, like it's just great. Like life should be high. As I look back on it, there was just a touch of something in that high that was just not sustainable, and it was not super just digested in my entire system.
Yeah,
it was just something I was sort of on fumes.
It's like a what's a way to describe this? It's like a sample.
Yeah, like a
sample.
Like a soundbite, like it's sort of like.
Yeah, it's filtered. It's like a filtered. It's the same thing, but like the volume is turned real low. But you do feel it. You do get a sense of freedom. You do get that sense of like.
What life can be.
Yes. But if it's artificial, that's what it is. If it's artificial, that means it's not coming from your heart, from you, from your awareness. It's coming from like an artificial environmental shift. And that's okay. Yeah, it's like, yes, exactly.
Like my mind is figuring it out, but like it's like I did, I kind of had to. I had to continue to like do more stuff. Like I came so close to like doing a round. Like I was literally having to drop.
I brought it up to you. I'm like, you should just do a round.
I'm requesting like let's do, because when I hear that voice, I'd be like, look, bitch, let's do it. Let's do the best fucking round. I'm gonna get the scale out. We're gonna be let's do this, And then I just was like, I couldn't follow through with it. I was like, oh my God, well, why don't you just try to go on a diet without the drops? And then that
that's
never
fine.
happened either.
Of course. But you probably overate.
I overeat, but I just pretty much stayed. I don't know. I haven't weighed myself, so I don't care.
I know. Doesn't that just seem so stupid? Because it's such a sideshow. Like the dieting and the binging and that's to me is a sideshow.
I weigh myself, I'm within 5 pounds, so I'm like, okay, nothing's like that's not even the issue. Like let's just concentrate on trying to listen to your fucking body and eat when you're hungry and stop when you're satisfied.
And that's easy. So you can take your mind and focus on what you really need to focus on, which is resolving and reconciling this issue with your dad. That's a big one.
Yeah, it really is.
And you need to feel that you are so connected to him on so many levels. It needs to be like Jesus, grace, love between you two.
Yeah.
Where there is not 1 ounce of guilt that needs to be held. Period.
Yeah, and maybe there is something I think I am gonna, I can take some action, talk to my brother, and just apologize to him.
Don't expect him to forgive you.
Oh, I won't.
So it's really just to release yourself and to admit and to recognize, just to recognize the horrific pain and anguish that would bring anybody to drink. But that you I swear to God, your dad knew that you were going to have to feel this pain. He, at some point, had foresight to go, oh shit, she's going to realize at some point what she's done, and she is going to have to face it, and it will kill her.
Yeah.
And
right.
I'm telling you right now, as a parent, that would kill a parent. Meaning to know your child is in that much remorse and pain.
Yeah.
It would be horrible if I knew that about my own child.
And he loved me so much. I mean, that's what was in that folder. Like, it was just...
That's what I'm trying to tell you. He knew
like,
it. He knew that your karma was enough pain. He did not need an apology from you. He did not need you to acknowledge it. Because he knew that you were going to have to face this. And this was your deal. Not his. It was not his deal.
Okay, I know we're going over, so let's...
Okay. Well, and this is our last session of the session. But
it is? I thought we had 2 more.
Hold on, let me look.
I have them on my calendar. They've been really spread out.
Let's match. Let's look at it together. Here, let me stop this.